Sukuna, let's try one more time. Living not by cursing someone, but existing alongside them. Even if no one will accept you, I'll live with you. Now, you're probably thinking, what does this even mean and why does it make total sense? Well, Sukuna's idea of power compared to GOJO is completely different. Kashimo even asks Sukuna if connecting with others and loving those beneath him whilst knowing nothing of weakness, is it even possible? Is strength solitude or an endless search for greater power? But Sukuna told them they were all greedy and wrong, thinking that Yoruzu, Kashimo and GOJO would have made much better company for each other. Both GOJO and Sukuna are natural disasters that are feared by everyone, yet GOJO identifies as a human through his choices. He felt like things were just getting worse and stronger curses were occurring more often. As a result, GOJO puts all his efforts into making his allies loyal to their good morals. Yuta and Yuji were both sentenced to execution, but he found loopholes to make sure they survived his plan. Now in contrast, Sukuna is a curse. In chapter 1, he states the hierarchy of society should be deemed by ability. In the past, we see politicians, sorcerers and emperors abiding by his law. Now this is where everything starts interconnecting with Yuji killing Sukuna. Uro confirms the cycle of sorcerers dying with regrets and people cursing each other has been ongoing for 1,000 years. But Yuta insinuates, similar to Yuji, that if you love someone or live for the sake of others, this can be counteracted. There is no reason to put all this effort just for yourself. Yuta says this is simply desperate selfishness. However, he is blessed with friends and lives for the sake of others. This motif is continued within Yuji and Sukuna's fight, as everything is but a choice on the role you choose. In the domain expansion, Yuji tries to get Sukuna to experience an average human life like his own, as he views the brat as having no value just like everyone else. The strongest of every generation has tried showing Sukuna love in their own way, but of course they failed miserably. This time, Yuji was doing it in his own way by making Sukuna understand compassion. Before, he believed it was important to fulfill the role of a cog. If he died with that mentality, he would have accepted it as a good death. But what does that mean? Well, early on, Yuji pondered the difference between the death he's facing and his grandpa, claiming he died peacefully and that curses do not give humans a natural death. After killing his first human, he asks Nanami what is a proper death, as it's a fate that no one can escape, but he always thinks to give his opponents a genuine one. But after his journey, everything changed. Yuji's I am you statement to Mahito is different from his you are me one with Sukuna. Mahito could perceive the soul in every living thing and was born from human resentment. He believed the reason humans think they're superior is only because of their nature to create reason compared to other life forms that can't, which makes their idea of justice flawed. This is because he's also a living creature that sees humans as prey, which makes it natural for Mahito to kill them. As a result, Mahito claims Yuji is just like him. It's natural for Yuji to kill curses and save humans, just as it is for Mahito to do the opposite. The line of good and evil is created by humans to impose on everyone else. So just as Sukuna said in chapter 238, it's not his problem if his stature cannot be measured or understood by the world. So before his enlightenment, Yuji initially believed Mahito was correct, that yeah, nothing matters. He doesn't even need to find a meaning or reason to kill. This meant he thought life was meaningless. But Yuji's journey to fulfill his purpose to kill Sukuna comes from his journey of suffering. Todo taught him that being a Jujutsu sorcerer means to endure punishment. Throughout the story, Yuji holds the curse of killing his own brothers. He couldn't do a thing to save Junpei, Nanami, and Nobara as he initially thought she was dead. He watched Sukuna massacre thousands of people in Shibuya with his own body just to make him suffer. And so he started to blame himself for that incident. As a result, when he stood trial in court, Yuji admitted to all his crimes despite being innocent. Higuruma tells us that all people are weak and ugly. So no matter how high-minded a soul like Yuji aspires to be, he cannot save everyone. However, the manga clearly builds up Yuji's mercy and the you are me moment with Sukuna's death here, because in chapter 166, we are told that to empathize with human emotions means to understand their weakness. But Sukuna has never known weakness due to being the strongest in history. So having empathy to these emotions he claims to understand is actually impossible. Now, in contrast, Yuji felt weak multiple times in the story, such as against the finger bearer, Mahito, and even admitting it to Higuruma. He feels the worst that he had to kill someone from his own will and hands, as his empathy is actually linked to chapter 24. Remember that Junpei asked him something very important. Have you ever killed anyone? Eventually you run into bad sorcerers. What would you do? Yuji even back then said he would rather not kill anyone if it was possible, even if that person was bad like Sukuna. However, due to the lifestyle of Jujutsu, the choice to kill will find its way to him. And Yuji then says, if I question the value of life, then maybe the lives of those important to me will also become vague. And that scares me. So as you can see, Akutami had planned all of this from the start, as he showed Yuji as the direct contrast that was prepared to save Sukuna if he could. This chance is created with Yuji's domain expansion, as he explains that every human being can have a role of their choosing, and it can be anything from walking the dog to making a family. This would form a connection that would leave fragments of memories floating after death that hold meaning as those fragments still become a story. It's perfectly portrayed with the false memories Yuji has with Choso and Todo. Even though their loving memories weren't real with Yuji, it still represented something that was. In turn, it created a new chapter in their book. Yuji is trying to highlight that everyone's story has an intrinsic worth, even if some people have huge shoes to fulfill whilst others have none. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't cling to life for being weak, as Sukuna claimed in chapter 214. However, there is a huge problem. The cycle of curses and sorcerers are in a never-ending war. The world Megami and Yuji wish to create would never be possible. Even the moment Yuji consumed Sukuna's finger, he had a choice to die now or die later, which is directly paralleled with him giving Sukuna this exact option in chapter 265. Yuji laments that he finally understood the pain and suffering others go through, whereas before he couldn't due to being naturally strong. His grandpa with lung cancer denied treatments with strong side effects to survive, as he believed in his own choice. But his suffering as a sorcerer, flooding him with awful thoughts, has taught him to empathize with anyone facing a helpless situation. However, Sukuna, he says, nah, I'm doubling down as a curse, surprised over his fury due to being looked down upon. For 1,000 years, Sukuna has been the pinnacle of Jujutsu. Even GOJO had to give him respect. He saw Sukuna as the strongest, and being confident in beating him was primarily to engage in a dance to feel human again. To fight Sukuna is to risk death, and pushing him to fight seriously is to gain his respect. However, Yuji straight up offers him mercy as though he is the very insect he looks down upon. Therefore, there couldn't be any greater insult to someone like Sukuna. So to make Yuji pay for his contemptuous pity, he will take it out on others. But Yuji informs Sukuna they were both born into the world shouldering curses. What type of monster you become is decided by luck. For example, GOJO was born blessed with the 6 eyes and limitless, right? But even so, he had to become a monster to be the catalyst that breaks the cycle. And similarly, Yuta, who was also blessed, bore his burden alongside him by taking over his body. In turn, Yuji also had to become a monster to save those he cherishes, where his journey forced him to kill his brothers and others when he never wished to. In parallel, Sukuna killing his twin out of hunger due to his mother's poverty is linked. On top of that, twins have always been a bad omen, yet Sukuna was the fallen one as Angel and the Heian era dubbed him at birth. Therefore, Yuji tells Sukuna, "You are me." They both became enlightened monsters, but their paths deviated for different reasons. Now, to enjoy more peak fiction, watch this video on your screen right now.